parking. Now, members will remember debating and determining this at a previous meeting of the Cambridge JAC. The reason it has been brought back to you today is that when we had the first determination, the report omitted to acknowledge the fact that a large petition from Thoday Street's residents had been received by the council. So we've taken the decision to redo that decision to allow Mrs. Thoday, who coordinated the petition, the opportunity to speak to you today. The report is otherwise unchanged that you see before you. We've also advised the people who came to the first determination, so we'll see the public speakers again. But I'm going to call public speakers after the officer's report. We're going to have Richard Lumley introduce the TRO to us again, and we've then got three public speakers, including House and Board. So if I can turn to Mr. Lumley to introduce the House again. What is he with you? Make it one side there and then we'll take it. I'm glad you're here. That's okay. Over to you.
Thank you. I think given that this paper has been presented before, I'm not proposing to go through it in much detail, other than the proposal was carried out in consultation with local members, which agreed that a trial should be undertaken to ascertain if there was any support from residents to replace some car parking with cycle parking. Some temporary ranks were installed back in September, and further consultation carried out. The responses to the trial were fairly even at that time, with 16 residents contacting the County Council in support of the permanent installation of cycle racks and 14 against, and it is that included the petition, so the petition did come previously. After that, there was further consultation carried out, and it was agreed that the traffic regulation order would indeed be advertised. It was advertised in Cambridge News in June 2014. The statutory consultation resulted in 9 objections and 1 comment of support, and following the analysis of the evidence received, it is recommended that the order is made as advertised.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to call on Mrs. Thoday to address the committee. Mrs. Thoday will have 3 minutes to speak, and you're welcome, if you would like to come to the front, you're welcome to either stand or sit down, however you feel most comfortable.
Okay.
When you're
if you have a copy, I'll be fine. Just reading this text. So, if you don't want to read, then one has this one.
I'll warn you, Mrs. Thoday, when you've got 30 seconds left. Got it set up. Yes.
I speak as a resident of Thoday and wish to draw attention to the petition against the TRO. It has 1 100 plain signatures, plus email support of 4 numbers, 114 in total, as opposed to 68 supporters in Saturday. Our letter to Mr. Hughes in July 2014 clearly mentioned the petition, but there is nothing about it in the report by the officers. The blog and newsletter attached to the letter I sent you last week reveal the fact behind the proposal. In 2012, the cycle campaign group received a complaint from a resident in the car-free household at the time about cycle parking in Thoday Street. Then the owner of household 100, who is an active member of the group, sold his car. Then to be in a better position to start this campaign. On the 2nd of September 2013, he called me. He talked to every councillor and requested for trial. Not only that, it seems that campaigner and his group have exerted undue influence and pressure at every stage of the process. I outlined several of our reasons for objection. 1. Plenty of bike tracks already exist within 5 minutes walk to Thoday Street. For instance, outside Empress Park, on Thoday Street side of St. Philip's Church, on St. Philip's Road and outside Cove on New Road. 2. Cambridge has a vast rate of cycle. That is why the residents keep their bikes on their premises. Leaving bikes outside will attract petty crime and vandalism. We do not want that. Security is paramount in residential areas. 3. Passageways between terraces are wide enough to bring out bikes and big buildings. And when it is dark, cyclists can be used. Back gardens are big enough to accommodate bikes, including digital bikes. Some houses have front gardens as well, so there's no need to have bike in the street. In fact, number 4, normally they are armed with bikes leaning on houses. Number 5, fixed bike racks become an obstacle to vehicles and create more dead spaces. The street should provide flexibility for everyone to use. Above all, in a democracy, it is vital for elected politicians to respect the wishes of the residents who sign the petition and not to be dictated to by the powerful pressure group. I show you 2 photos. One, Thoday in 2013. This is the car-free household thing. Not the car, but you can see no bikes on the pavement. This is the true picture. I didn't really take it. Thank you for listening. But I understand many of you are member of Henry II. Thank you. Thanks, Mr.
Thank you very much. Perfectly kind.
Good.
Now I'd like to call Mr. Simon Russell to address the meeting.
Will I just do it from here?
Would you like to come to the front?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's all right.
There's a microphone.
This is not allowed to be allowed to remove.
Thank you. Councillors, here I am again, asking you to approve the conversion to marked parking, the conversion of the marked parking area in front of 2 houses in Thoday Street to cycle parking. I've been working on this for more than 2 years now, since a neighbour first suggested the idea. I went to see her, and she had one of those houses where you the door, the front door, opens directly into the living room, where there were 2 bikes and a child trailer. I realised straight away that we aren't the only household who is living around bikes in our houses or struggling past them in the narrow hallways. I took up her idea with local councillors, and that led to the cycle parking experiment in September 2013. The results of the experiment showed a good level of support for the idea. I raised the issue at the East Area Committee, who approved making the traffic regulation order. The traffic regulation order advertised only for objections, of which there were just 8. Now, heart of the objectors' arguments is a failure to acknowledge the diversity of lifestyles in our street, which are many households who do not have a car, lots of students, many of whom have bikes, visitors arriving by bike, and the variety of bike designs such as cargo bikes and bikes with child trailers. It is only right that these people should be accommodated in the available parking resource. Our circulators and photos as a reminder of how the scheme fixes the problems, but we all know the argument is because we discussed it at length in September when you gave unanimous support for going ahead with the scheme. I've just confirmed today that the Mayor, Joe Bird, would support the racks at the side of the road. I hope you will confirm September's decision today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call Martin Lucas-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I speak, can I just confirm that we haven't sent any letter out on behalf of the campaign to councillors, so if you have received something that's not with our knowledge, maybe from individuals, I don't know. I speak on behalf of the Cambridge Cycling Campaign. We strongly support this small proposal initiated by local residents of Oxley for secure cycle parking in the vicinity of their houses for use by any members of the public. The only way that the long-running car parking situation in Romsey will be solved is if alternative forms of transport are properly provided for. We need to treat cycling as a real mode of transport, rather than something merely squeezed in onto pavements at the expense of pedestrians. For instance, the current situation denies people the choice to own a Dutch-style bike with a box in front to carry children when shopping. Such bikes are increasingly popular in Cambridge and very popular in cities abroad where residential cycle parking is provided. In Cambridge, instead, people have to own a car, taking up space, exacerbating the current situation. This proposal gives them choice. Secondly, as we all know, there is a very consistent and large cycle theft problem, continually outlined in the police reports the area committees. And having bikes stolen obviously stops people cycling. There are well over 100 car parking spaces on this street, but not a single secure cycle parking space. So allocating nearly half of 1% of street space is surely not unreasonable. Thirdly, the current situation denies the ability of people with mobility impairments to use the pavements. The pavement car parking forces bikes to be left in the remaining space, and these pictures that Simon circulated show that very, very well. Currently, those walking and those in wheelchairs are treated as if they didn't matter, completely contrary to council policy that puts pedestrians at the top of the transport hierarchy. This proposal enables people in houses, at least those nearby, to park bikes off the pavement. We think it would be illogical not to agree to this. For instance, would the minority of residents who objected prefer that their neighbours, hypothetically, say, buy an ugly, clapped-out van for £100, permanently taking up 2 parking spaces, and have bikes put inside that van? Surely it's better to allocate half of that space and provide public space for 8 people. And why is there not an objection every time a skip is parked on the street? Or why were there not objections when car club spaces were put in? These 3 examples show that people do cope with changes. There's been extremely extensive consultation showing positive overall support by majority, and in fact this tiny scheme has probably had the most consultation per metre squared of public space in the whole of the UK. It's time we got this approved. The Oxford report has debunked a small number of objection points comprehensively. Please approve this at long last so this long-running issue can finally be put to rest. Once cycle parking goes in, people will forget this was even an issue.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hillingbrook, who's the County Council for Romsey.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to say that I asked for this item to come back to the committee because an officer had undertaken to contact the petitioners and didn't, so they didn't get to make the case against. So thank you for hearing it again. I still support going ahead with this scheme on the basis that a survey is more representative than a petition which presents only one side of the argument. That said, I do actually disagree with the points made by both parties for and against. conducted a survey, we've got 112 responses, which is a very big and I believe representative response. 61% of people were for, 36% against. The responses were very nuanced. Some cyclists were against the scheme, some motorists were for it. In terms of the arguments for, I thought the main one was that this is terraced housing, and there are no gardens at the front, so people have to go down these very narrow alleyways to get to their back gardens, which women in particular find uncomfortable at night. In terms of the arguments against, some people pointed out that cyclists can ultimately park their bikes somewhere else, whereas motorists can't to the same extent. And I believe there is reason in both arguments. However, that's why I tried to find out what people thought, conducted a survey. I believe the scheme is modest. It's only 2 bays we're talking about at the end of the road where there's the least traffic, so we're trying hard to minimise any inconvenience. On the petition, I've no reason at all to believe it's incorrect. It's consistent with the survey that we conducted. I did, though, talk to 2 people last night who had said in my survey they supported the scheme, who had also signed the petition against. The first of them said that, well, they were supportive of the scheme, but the petitioner was passionately against it and lived on that end of the street, so they signed the petition out of sort of solidarity. The second person said that they supported the racks, but they also agreed that it was hard to park on the street, so they signed the petition in sympathy. I said, well, look, I don't mind, but on balance, which do you actually prefer? And they said, oh, well, on balance, I prefer to go with it. So I think the point is that a petition gives only one side of the story, which does tend to sway people. That's why I conducted a survey. I should also add that Simon Nuttall, who's a resident, wanted to conduct a petition in favour of it. I discouraged him from it for that exact reason. I said it would just be a competition to see who can do the most legwork to get the most signatures, which would not actually be the most accurate way of gauging what people really think. So I do believe the survey reflects the complexity of the issue. It's representative. I would urge councillors to go ahead with it for that reason. And whatever you do, please make a decision.
Thank you very much. I've also received written submissions from Dr. Brosnan, who is a resident of Thoday Street, and from Councillor Agent, City Councillor for Romsey, which I hope members of the committee will receive. Thank you.
Could they be read out for the public record?
Pardon?
Could they be read out for the public record? Or could we have copies?
It's probably not the right time to raise issues of procedure, Chair, but I'm a little bit uneasy with the fact that some correspondence is coming in very late in the day, where actually, if I hadn't been in looking at my emails on 1:24 this afternoon, I would not have read one of the particular provisions that you referred to. I think there's an issue of whether we do have a sensible time cut off for submissions to our committee deliberations, because clearly they should be submitted in public and allow those arrangements to move them to make that known if they have the right to speak at this meeting. That's not the time to discuss it now, but I think you do have to look at how we get these late submissions and particularly when it's something presented to us as we come to this meeting, because we are clearly putting a position where we feel we should read them, but actually others may wish to read them and don't have a chance. I think we need to look at that at some point, probably in the review stage of this.
Thank you. Your point is well taken, and in this case I did have requests from people to speak which would not have met the deadline for public speaking, and I said that it would be in order for them to send something out in a written way. In justification, I would say that the date of the meeting was not known until quite soon before it, so it was a way of allowing people to have a say. Would members like me to read the written submissions out, or has everybody had time to read them?
Yes, can you read them out? I haven't had time to.
Yeah.
Do you want to vote? I think
read Councillor Bajan's email, which did come in good time.
It was just sent to the chair, wasn't it?
It was sent as a request to share it in debate. I'm afraid I'm unable to attend this meeting and would ask the following comment be shared with committee members and used in the debate. The loss of 2 spaces will not unduly impact on car parking on Thoday Street and will be beneficial for cyclists. I also hope that this positive move will be seen by cyclists as the local authority recognising their needs and in some small way encourage more people to cycle in our city. I support the officer's comments in regard to cycle parking in Thoday Street. I support the majority of residents in Thoday Street who have recognised the benefits of this scheme.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to open the matter to debate by members. Councillor Smart.
Thank you. As the one of the councillors, one city board councillor for Romsey, I actually took part in the survey that Councillor Burton referred to, and I come to court with the idea that the majority of people in Thoday Street are at least willing to give it a go, though maybe those who are wildly enthusiastic are thinner on the ground. For the record, I do not cycle. I am not a member of the cycling campaign, and I do have a car. So, and I disregard all comments that have been made or are reputed to have been made by the cycling campaign. This is the thin end of a great big wedge, so we're going to be covered with cycle rack all over the place. It is, as Councillor Bajan said, a small experiment, well, not experiment, we've had the experiment, a small proposal for 2 car parking bays to be taken out and have cycle parking provision put there, which would be particularly useful, and the Councillor Bajan said this, but I'm going to say, be particularly useful for those who have the Dutch bikes and cargo bikes, which it is very difficult to get down the narrow alleys. I mean, you could say, actually, I think it would be almost impossible, at least on some occasions, to turn them, to get them down the alley, partly because of the cars parked half on the pavement as they are in Romsey. I doubt if the turning circle is big enough to get them down the alley. Therefore, they have to be either taking up the car in the road, where they can't be secured to anything, or against on the pavement against the house, where they are a distinct impediment to people going down, keeping on the pavement. I have some sympathy with Councillor Burke's request that we actually put this matter to bed, because it has been going on quite a long time. I will be supporting it because I think it is a worthwhile, small scheme to ease things a little bit. One other thing I'd like to say, there has been considerable emphasis being put on the fact that it was residents who hadn't got cars who asked for it. Fine. The implication being that they were entitled to a car park which they were going to trade for. None of us own the road outside our house. I will admit to some irritation when I have to park halfway down the street and not outside my house, but it is completely illogical. I do not own that bit outside my house, and if I can get the car parked there, well and good, and if I can't, tough. And that's the way it is. You park where you can, and you have to put up with it. And I see no reason why a large number of people who have cycles should not have the option. They don't have to use these cycle racks. Give them the option, particularly those who find it difficult to get them to the back gardens. I shall be supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Chair. I never thought I'd actually hear myself say this, but I actually feel sorry for Councillor Burke. Because this is clearly one of those situations where a local member has done their utmost to try and consult and it's led to substantial and clearly somewhat intractable opinion in either direction. And as Councillors Burke and Smart pointed out, this is just going to require some political courage just to do it. I also find it slightly odd because, in my next door seat, Petersfield, I've had two cycle-routes going on very comparable streets, Kingston Street at the top end of Mawson Road, and they've gone in with very little opposition at all. So I do wonder what local circumstances there are in Thoday Street for it to be quite so difficult. But I am convinced that there is substantial local member support, that there has been substantial consultation, and that there is no reason, in terms of how the TRO process is done, to vote against it.
Thank you. That's another.
Just very briefly, just to address, even if I take the two numbers in the letters we've received, the face value to 114 and 68, it comes back to the point that that still means there's roughly half of the people who supported it, and we're talking about a tiny amount of parking we're going to lose, and I, for one, will say it sets a precedent all well and good.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, do you have your hand up? Or do you wish to...
I can. Yes, I fully support this proposal, as I have done throughout, particularly for people using the pavements, the pedestrians, people in wheelchairs, families with prams and so on. Because it is difficult enough going down Thoday Street and those other roads, off Mill Road and other streets around here, where you have cars parked half on, half off. And people's journeys are impeded by having bikes left leant against the front of houses. So anything that can alleviate that, and what this scheme is going to do is going to provide on-road parking for bikes. And as was just said by Councillor Memmott there, I hope it inspires other residents on other streets to follow the example of hopefully what we're going to vote for here tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Baker?
Yes, I wasn't going to say a word, but I'm going to say that point about this idea of a precedent. I'm sorry, I'm with Councillor Smart here. We look at these issues on a practical basis. We consult with residents. When there's support, we can go with these proposals. When there's not, I think it's very much an immediate area issue, and I think we judge each one on its merits.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the votes now. Can I see members in favour of the traffic regulation?